Over the next 5 weeks, we'll be meeting 25 incredibly talented young people as they take part in the category finals. But this is a competition that's about more than just talent. It's also about commitment and dedication. You can expect tension, drama, and some exceptional music making. Welcome to Cardiff and BBC Young Musician 2010.
Clemency, your thoughts on this final?
Thank you, Howard. Yes, it's been an extraordinary competition and I, for one, cannot wait for this final to get underway. If you're looking for me to make a prediction, I'm afraid there's only one I'm willing to make, and that is that whatever happens, we're in for a spectacular occasion. This is an extraordinary moment for you. How do you feel?
I don't know.
I would just like to say that I've interviewed Laura a number of times over the past few weeks and months, and every time I ask her how she feels, she says, I don't know. But it's wonderful because you can express who you are through your music, and we're all so grateful to you.
A few months ago, I had to teach myself Arnold Schoenberg's Variations for Orchestra from scratch. The conductor Daniel Barenboim had invited me to join one of his orchestras on tour, and this piece, one of the most fiendish in all of classical music, was on the programme.
Around 1907, Schoenberg, who'd previously been writing in the same vein as other Romantic composers, basically decided to do away with the building blocks of Western harmony. Schoenberg felt that tonality had been pushed to its limits and was now basically pointless. He invented something called the 12-tone system, which pretty much did away with key signatures and replaced the scale with something called a tone row, in which each of those 12 notes has exactly the same value, and you're not allowed to repeat any of the 12 notes until they've all been sounded. Did you get that? A Schoenberg tone row would sound something like this. Just sounds pretty bonkers, doesn't it?
Tell me about Ronald, because he will be the first UK professional black tenor to take on this role, is that right?
Certainly will. I mean, he's the first black tenor at all that I know of.
But I've been looking, and actually I was trying to look through past Othellos, and you see endless Othellos blacked up, whether they're the opera singers or the actors. You've got Laurence Olivier, Placido Domingo. Can you explain, why were there no black Othellos, tenor Othellos before now? Is it because of racial prejudice or a lack of black tenors?
I love it. He's asking the amateurs, the volunteers, whether they actually can hear something, whether they understand it, and if they say no, he changes it. So he's changed it from that's Iago's creed to that's what I believe. People think that's clearer, in it goes.
It's a very timely and controversial issue, isn't it, that it deals with, that of how to deal with an ageing society, I guess. Was it something you specifically wanted to address through theatre?
Well, yes. I mean, I think that theatre has to be relevant in whatever way each production finds.
Were you always a bit of a theatre history historian geek, or have you been inspired by coming to Bristol?
Now, very few British musicians have ever been a part of the West Eastern Divan Orchestra in its 10-year history, but one of them is our very own Clemency Burton-Hill, and she's downstairs now with Daniel Barenboim.
Indeed, thanks Charlie, and thank you Daniel, it's lovely to see you. In the 10 years since the orchestra was founded, we've had an intifada, we've had a war between Israel and Lebanon, we've had the terrible conflict in Gaza this January when the orchestra was actually on tour. How do you think the West Eastern Divan have responded to the ongoing conflicts in their region?
Well, look, when we started 10 years ago, and some musicians...
For me, this novel was unbelievably flawed and unbelievably frustrating, because every now and again it was studded with something beautiful and something brilliant. It's 49 years since Philip Roth was saying the imagination of the novelist lies helpless before what he's going to read in tomorrow's newspapers. It's got to be a fatal flaw in this novel that he tells us on page 1 that he's going to kill himself, and I'm still thinking, oh, come on, get on with it. The serious message underneath the very exaggerated and distorted satire, isn't it? That the ministers really don't know what they're doing. They're not in control.
Doctors?
Well, I think...
Derek Draper, McBride...
I think the spin doctors would be lucky to be as good as Malcolm Tucker, actually. You'd hope that BP would be showing a little more humility, given that it's less than a year since that disaster and its impact is still ravaging the region.
I'm someone who actually thinks that you should treat the ups and the downs with some kind of equanimity and just get on with your job.
Do you not need to have a sense of taking the sort of public temperature and the media temperature in terms of what's going on? But one of the big losers is ministers who will no longer get their chauffeur-driven Jags, but are going to have to take the tube to work like the rest of us.